everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. What a week it was. Today is November the 27th, 2020. Strong hand, long-term thinking. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. Don't FOMO on altcoins. I'm offended by selling. Conviction. Be a unique beast. We have 3 unique beasts here today from all over the world because we couldn't have Americans here today because they're just still stuffing their faces. I don't know what's going on there. I'm there, though. Tim Copeland, the UK news editor from Decrypt is here. Mauricio of Ledin is here. And the legendary Daniel Prince is here. Okay, we're going to start off with one of the big stories from right before Thanksgiving. It broke. Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, said the Trump administration may rush out burdensome crypto wallet rules. And perhaps the market reacted to it. There are a lot of people talking about this potential regulation, and some people support it. Some people think it'll be good to have more KYC in the space. Tim Copeland over in the UK, what is this exactly, and what have you heard?
Okay, well, I mean, it's all based on a tweet thread by Brian Armstrong. He basically set out the idea that the US Treasury and Secretary wants to bring in new crypto regulation. We've kind of seen it happen in some places around the world, like in the Netherlands. The main idea is that when you want to withdraw from, say, Coinbase, you need to kind of prove that you own the address you're withdrawing to. So it's kind of like advanced verification. At the moment, you just have to prove, you have to go through KYC just to use the service, but this will be, it's kind of monitoring what you do with the money outside of the service to some degree. And we've seen a little bit of this with Binance before in terms of I think they've blocked people from sending money to Bitcoin mixers. So this is definitely like a thing that regulators are looking at. But there was a good tweet thread also by Danny Scott of Coin Corner, who was saying about how some kind of, I think the Netherlands have, when they implemented this, they found that it's quite difficult because a lot of people don't know how to sign their wallets. So both him and Brian Armstrong say that the big issue here is that it hampers adoption. And I think that's kind of the big worry.
Yeah, it hinders innovation too. I mean, it creates a lot of red tape. Do you think a nation is? I mean, the Netherlands, they're a relatively big economy and everything, and this is very burdensome on them. Can this be implemented in the United States on such a large scale? Do you think?
I mean, yes. If the government tells Coinbase that it has to do this, it will do it.
Yes, that's a valid point there, but there's I'm just thinking ahead about there won't be too many new Coinbases opening if these rules are out there, which would be unfortunate for innovation. Now, Mauricio, you're not an American, but you're in Canada, and you run are part of a business. A cryptocurrency business. What do you think about this potential news? Is it? Do you think it's true?
Well, I mean, at least in the short time that I've been following Brian and the others, other people in this space, Brian doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that will rush out to spread a rumor. He's probably doing this because he feels like it's impending, and he's obviously thinking that he's rather do this now than after it comes out, so that at least he can say as sort of one of the leaders in the space, we try to essentially put our thoughts in paper and let them be known. I think I kind of, you have to put yourself in the shoes of a regulator as well. They've been essentially trying to balance privacy and financial inclusion with monitoring of money laundering activities and illicit activities. So, if you think back to even when the first set of AML KYC laws was implemented, which was the Bank Secrecy Act of the United States, it was essentially done in a way where they would allow private financial transactions, but they made large financial institutions the sort of allies to their monitoring efforts, because it is as a chief responsibility as a financial services service provider that you know your clients and that you report suspicious activity to your regulators. So in a way, what that did was that it somewhat enrolled financial services providers as sort of assistants or aides to this oversight process. And that's the way the sort of balance gets struck today, where large financial transactions have to be reported, and they are sort of a second set of eyes that surveils, potentially illicit activity, but they still allow some private activity to happen on the cash side of things. By putting out this rule, I echo the feelings that both of the tweets that Tim highlighted, which is I do believe that it will hamper adoption. I do believe that it will make Bitcoin much more difficult to use. I don't think it would necessarily be the end of the road, as far as like, just because this comes into place doesn't mean we can't fight it and improve it and whatever. And it may not even come into place, but as I understand it today, I do think it would be a material game changer to how Bitcoin is used today.
All right, let me give, before we get to Daniel Prince, and first of all, everybody, all these dudes are linked to below, so follow them on Twitter. Hello, all my elite friends out there. You can ask questions in the chat, try to get my attention. But I want to read this tweet by Raul Paul, because this sets some people off, and it pertains to this matter. If you think that secrecy from governments and KYC is Bitcoin's future, then you don't understand what adoption looks like. They will regulate it. You will declare it. You will have to do KYC, and that is fine. It doesn't take away its store of value, but just integrates it. Okay, I agree it doesn't take away its store of value, but the other stuff he's saying I don't really like. Daniel Prince, your take on the situation, and if that tweet added anything to it.
It's a strange one, because I don't know, like we all knew it's coming, right? They're going to come for Bitcoin. There's no stopping regulators. Regulators are going to regulate, and governments are going to govern. I was talking to the head of an exchange today, and he's been expecting this for as long as 6 years. They've been talking about this, and here it is. It's what's really strange in this particular case is they're trying to rush it through. And if you look at the FATF report, there's like 82 points on that. It's like 26 pages long, and they're like, signaling this one, which is number 52 on this report. And they want to squeeze it through in the last couple of weeks that the Trump administration are in power. It's just odd. Can they move that quickly? Yeah. To Tim's point, yes, they can. If they want to, they can just say to Coinbase, bam, right, you've got to tell us exactly who's using your service, KYC, everything, all the hard wallets. I don't know. I can't call it. It seems too quick, and I hope that the cyber hornets, we all know they're out there, that they're nimble and they are a creative bunch. So if they can get ahead of this before it's properly rolled out, probably in the next year or two, I think as a community we've got to understand it's coming, and what can we do to kind of get ahead of it, a little bit better.
All right. There's definitely ways of avoiding. If you don't store your Bitcoin on third parties and stuff, this isn't going to really affect you or anything per se. This isn't a death blow to Bitcoin. I want to put it out there. And the other thing, if they can implement it this quick, the next administration could get rid of it just as easily also. So on the KYC front, there is a related tweet to all this that I want to get your take on real quick. On the Mnuchin rumors, for the current Bitcoin bull market, the next 12 to 36 months, it doesn't matter. Why? The next wave of buyers are macro buyers and want regulation. For them, the 21 million cap is a feature, and censorship resistance is kind of a bug. They don't want self-custody, just an inflation hedge. That is from Kyle Samani. So, Dan Prince, we'll stick with you on that. Are the big boys that are entering the market, do they even care about this type of thing?
No, they don't. They don't. And they, in fact, for them, regulation would actually make it more attractive, because, and let's also remember what they're coming for. They're coming for the money. You know what? They're not here for why we're here. We came for the money. We stayed for the money, right? And we see what Bitcoin is and what it can mean for humanity. Big macro hedge fund investors, they don't care. They're coming with a fiat mindset to exit in fiat for their investors, because that's all their investors care about. The investors aren't down the rabbit hole. They don't care. They want return on their fiat. That's what the big macro guys are coming for. And they're never going to use hardware wallets. They'll use third-party custodians. They'll use Nox Capital, or Unchained, or River, or someone like that, NIDIG. And that's exactly what's going to happen. Or they'll just go straight into GBTC. And for them, the more regulation that comes, the more they can justify to their investors that this is a real asset and this is why we're putting your money into this. So they don't care. It's the hodlers and it's the people that have been here for the last however long that see this as a threat and something that's trampling all over our KYC. And, I'm on the side of the hodlers, obviously. But when you see like tweets from Raul, that's his mindset. He's a money manager, and that's the end of that.
Wow, that was you summed it up very nicely there. Everybody, pound that like button for that one, and remember, you watched last night's show. If you missed it, I just put it in the chat, dudes. All right, Tim, a lot was just said. Do you have anything to add
Yeah,
anything
I think that
by the two other guests?
Grayscale is just a perfect example of that. I mean, you look at the premiums these guys are paying, and the amount of money that's going into Grayscale is insane. And the reason they're doing that is they trust it.
Yes.
And I think that really sums up the attitude of institutional investors, which is primarily Grayscale's market, very well.
Mauricio?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk in recent weeks about this is a professional investor rally. This is not a retail rally, and a lot of people are pointing to Google Trends and such to kind of back that up. We looked at futures data for regulated and unregulated futures venues. When you look at the aggregate volume of interest in futures over 2019 to today, so over the last 12 months, the aggregate volume increase has been of 100 and some percent, 106%, I believe. If you look at CME and backed, like if you zoom into those two, the CME is up like 7x over the same period. Back is up 17x over the same period. So it is true that there is a disproportionate amount of participation on this sort of fully regulated platforms. And I think what is trying to happen is that when you're a large financial institution and you're operating in an asset, that asset shouldn't be or cannot be gray. It should either be black or it should be white. It should either be not accessible by criminals or it can't be accessed by criminals. There shouldn't be an in-between. So I think what the United States is trying to do is that they're trying to essentially segment the Bitcoin network into allowed uses that we're okay with and unallowed uses that we're not okay with, i.e. the Iranian central bank, i.e. the Venezuelan central bank. So I think that is part of the intent here, but it's going to have, as many say, potentially unintended consequences.
Right now, I lived through, and I think all of us lived through, we're aware of the scaling debate. And people tried to split Bitcoin based on scaling. Bcash came out of it. There's some people that are talking about this KYC debate that's now emerging from this quote-unquote rumor, that perhaps the simpler solution would be a KYC fork of Bitcoin. Do any of you see something like that occurring?
I'll answer that because Michael Saylor answered it on my show when I asked him this question, and he basically said it's already happened. It's called Monero and it's called Zcash, and it trades at about 2/100th of the price of Bitcoin. So forget it.
Forget. You mean a fork of a privacy fork of Bitcoin is what you're referring to here?
Yeah, he's saying it's happened. The fork's happened. You can buy these private tokens if you like, but the market's already priced their worth, and they're nowhere near as much as the price of a Bitcoin. So it's an interesting insight. So yeah, I mean, as far as he's concerned, the fork's already happened, and it's Monero and Zcash.
All right. So, I mean, is he? This is like a third party question here. Is he comfortable with the direction that Bitcoin's going in with government regulation, making it more KYC?
Again, you've the way I asked him that question as well, and he said, "Well, you have to put yourself in my shoes. I'm the CEO of a company." So to get that past the boardroom, there's got to be, to Mauricio's point, there's got to be a certain amount of buy-in and understanding of the asset that you are, divesting into. So no, for him, it was, here it is. This is what it is. We can move forward with this. And probably it's going to get more regulated in the future. Again, I think we all know that is going to come. It's just that this article and this tweet thread was a real eye-opener.
All right. So I want to recommend everyone to listen to that interview. Obviously, Daniel Prince's linked to below. You've got it out there. Correct. It's all you can find it on your Twitter feed.
Yep. Good.
Everyone check that one out. There's been a lot of Michael Saylor stuff. That's a very interesting one. So I want to conclude by just saying, does everyone think? What some of these tweets had in common is that no matter what happens, that Bitcoin will retain its gold 2.0 standard as a store of value, even if the United States implements these ridiculous regulations on it.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that the regulations will affect the companies that we use, but they can't just regulate Bitcoin globally, and that's a huge difference, and that's why the time frames are very different. Like, governments can crack down on, say, a crypto exchange very quickly by just saying it's illegal if you don't do this. But in terms of actually controlling what people do with their Bitcoin when it's non-custodial, it's a much bigger challenge for them and requires kind of global coordinated governmental efforts.
Mauricio, any final thoughts on this?
No, I mean, I put this in perspective just because I think, if you ask a client in, Venezuela or Colombia, like, do they care? Or for example, like, to give a better example, like, Venezuela or Nicaragua, if they prefer that, if they say, would you prefer to have your dollars or your value in a Venezuela bank and KYC with your regime, or would you prefer to do full KYC on your Bitcoin hardware wallets or etc. with your US provider? They will say they'll do the KYC with the US provider. They won't really have a big opposition to that given the alternative. So I think while it will impact the use case for Bitcoin in the United States, I think Bitcoin is materially changing way more lives outside of the United States, and that will remain.
All right. And Daniel, do you have any final thoughts before we move on to PlusToken?
Yeah, I do. I want to point out, because you were sending me the links that we were going to talk about today, and that tweet thread by Brian was put out a few days before this hit piece has been put out in the newspaper. So does that come into play? Was this kind of a coordinated PR stunt? Tim, what do you think?
I doubt it. I would be very surprised. Like, sure, coincidental timing, but yeah, they're just so unrelated things. I don't think one's really going to have an effect on the other.
Mauricio, you're smiling there, dude.
No, it's an interesting way to view it, right? Because there's an impending hit piece coming. We could talk about that hit piece after, but the article or the writer doesn't really have the most accurate track record, at least in crypto reporting, based on what I've read in the past. So it is an interesting dynamic going into this announcement. having said that, to Tim's point, I think they have so radically different implications on the two of them that it just, I think I would probably be on the side of just coincidental timing.
I have a take on this, as I actually brought it up on my show when this first came out, or I talked about it last night. I think he did mention it now to help distract people from it a little bit. I mean, he could have waited until afterwards. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a little bit more than a coincidence. They're not related, but I mean, he's a businessman. I think he wants to position himself before he gets ripped to shreds by the New York Times as a defender of the Bitcoin people. You know, I'm against what the government is doing here, so like me. And when the bad article comes up, maybe you'll be more prone to believe my side of the story. So I think he might be using it. So that's a very interesting observation on your part, Daniel Prince. We will get to that article. I've given everybody a little preview. We're going to talk about the New York Times in the second half hour here. Because Daniel, Tim's got to get out of here pretty soon, and I want to bring up a topic right now that he could talk about real quick, and that is what is this China FUD is back in the air again. Every time I think people aren't going to panic about China anymore, they got to come up with a new China story that might be an old China story. We knew there was a company or an entity called PlusToken that was ripping people off. It was a scam, and it acquired a lot of Bitcoin and Ethereum. And now there's an article that says the government of China has that Bitcoin and Ethereum and others cryptos. But then some people are saying they already dumped it. So, Tim, do you know what's going on here?
I don't know 100% about it, but I believe that the main news that's come out today is that we have a specific breakdown of the assets that were seized. I think that's what we know today, and I think it's quite interesting. I mean, the Chinese government now has 6 billion Dogecoin, which I think is amazing. I mean, I think that's 5%. Was it 5%?
Wait, I got it here. Hang on, I got it here somewhere. Yeah, keep going. I'll find. No, it's Doge. Yeah, 6 billion Doge, baby. 6 billion Doge for China. Maybe if they didn't dump it yet. See, that's the question. But continue.
So, like, you wouldn't be surprised if you're just scrolling Reddit, you just see the Chinese government making like 1 Doge equals 1 Doge jokes. Just like they're just getting involved on it. But yeah, so I think it seems to be that we just have the most detailed breakdown of everything that they've seized from the PlusToken scandal in a kind of detailed court filing. I think that's essentially what we take out of the news today.
Yeah, but what people are worried about is like if they really have 194,775 Bitcoin, did they already dump it? Because then it would already affected the market, or are they going to dump it eventually, or is the Chinese government going to become a big holder of Bitcoin? So I pose that question to the Tim. I don't know if you have anything more to say about it, but
I don't know. I'm just thinking that none of them are particularly great options. Yeah, but I think it's probably quite difficult to know until the government actually says this is what we've done. We sold this much, or we're holding on to this much, or whatever.
Well, I mean, if the government of China says they did it, I'm not going to believe it. But I think the best scenario, and the one that Twitter is, some of the OGs on Twitter are saying, is that they already. This is just an announcement of what they had. They already dumped all their Bitcoin because we can't remember a time when there was the Bitcoin price was dumping, and people are like, well, it's the scammers are selling their Bitcoin now, but maybe it was the Chinese government. I don't know. Mauricio, do you have a take on this?
I think I read the news. I saw the breakdown. I thought it was fascinating to see how much, like, the sheer volume of this scam was impressive. Just how much money they were able to dupe people out of. I think there's a camp that thinks that I had this passing thought where I'm like, would the Chinese government actually hold this on treasury at the central bank level? And I think that's a bit of a stretch still today. Like, it still takes years and many conversations on corporate boards to even get them to pass. And Bitcoin's at a market cap right now where some corporate some corporates in the U.S. could like take up the entire market cap on their cash balance. So I think as a sovereign sort of central bank asset, like sure, the Iranian central bank and the Venezuelan central bank might dabble in it because they have very little other choices. But sort of a robust central bank is still a bit far away, I think, from considering holding these. So my view would be that there will be some sort of liquidation or transition process. I'm not sure if it's already happened. I wouldn't have the data to kind of know that, but either it already happened or is on the way there.
All right, Daniel Prince, your take on this.
Yeah, the first thing, I mean, if it is true, like the first thing they should do is try and return it to the rightful owners of the people that have been scammed. But are they going to do that? Like, I mean, it's just, how is that not what they're releasing, right? Who's in charge of their PR? Like, we're going to find and return this, and the criminals will go to jail. But no, what they're saying is we're going to put it straight in our national treasury. You're like, guys, like, really? So now it makes me think, yes, of course, no one's going to believe what they say. But does this kick off some kind of game theory at the governmental level? Because all the other countries are going to be looking at this, right? Very, very closely. And we have how many of Ulbricht's coins were seized recently in the US? So we have potentially two governments holding huge amounts of Bitcoin, staring at each other across the fence. Like, you go, you sell yours. No, we'll keep ours. Like, this is the game theory that Bitcoin we've all known in the end would play out at a state level. Interesting one to watch. Could be complete and total FUD. Who knows?
Yeah, well, perhaps China is now valuing their wealth in Dogecoin. They're never going to let go of that precious 6 billion Dogecoin. But I will say, I mean, the United States and Australia have set the precedent. They've already auctioned off all of their confiscated Bitcoin in the past. So I don't see the United States changing its tune anytime soon. But China, they're not going to necessarily replicate that. Or you never know what's going on over there. So it will be interesting to watch. We may never know the truth. I still find it fascinating that a story like this can come out and people sell the news. I mean, the price did drop. I think it had a little bit to do with that today, but who knows? Anyway, I know, Tim, you got to get out of here pretty darn soon. Do you have any conclusionary things you want to say? Anything about Decrypt? I really love what they're doing over there. It's a great publication. If you could tell us anything about it or any other news you wanted to say. Tim, you there?
I think we might have lost him.
Wait. Oh, he got out. He had the jet right, like exactly at a half hour. Let me see.
Oh no, he's back. He's back.
I'm back. Hey guys.
All right. Oh yeah. I thought you jetted out all of a sudden. Did you hear my question or?
No. My internet completely dropped off. I haven't been on here for about a minute or 2 minutes.
Yeah. You missed. I just addressed you like saying that you're going to have to go soon because it's at the half hour mark. And that I really love what Decrypt is doing. If you can tell us anything about Decrypt, or if there are any stories you want to talk about before you go, the floor is yours.
Was I just motionless?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I assumed I dropped off, so it was obvious. Yeah, I tried messaging you, but my phone was on Wi-Fi, so it also didn't send it. Yeah, I mean, so Decrypt, we're a 2-year-old crypto news organization. We have an app, which is really cool. Recommend everyone download it. We're gonna also try and do some pretty cool crypto stuff. So we're integrating crypto into our app, so you can earn tokens while you read, that kind of thing, which is really cool. Yeah, we also have a podcast, the Decrypt Daily, which it's growing. Yeah, we just try and deliver the right news every day.
Yeah, I like it. I enjoy it a lot more than Cointelegraph and CoinDesk. You guys are you do it a little differently over there. It's not a bunch of clickbait and everyone can judge for themselves. Check it out, but you're doing well. Any other news stories or anything you want to share before you get out of here, or do you still got to get out of here?
Yeah, I gotta go. Nothing particular has come up. It's been a very quiet day with Thanksgiving and everything. There's been very little news.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, keep up the good work, Tim. Thank you for making your debut on the show today, and hopefully you will be back. All right. We'll move on to the next topic here. Why not go to the Venezuela story? Because we got a man who knows Venezuela, and that is Mauricio. We actually discussed this the last time. It's kind of revolutionary, an interesting use case for stable coins and governments trying to mess with other governments through cryptocurrency. So I'll let you explain what's going on with USDC or whatever stable coin the United States is trying to get over to Juan Guaido and whatnot.
Yeah, so maybe I'll set the sort of backdrop for maybe a few people that may not be familiar exactly with what's happening. So Venezuelans have been in a tight spot for a very long time. They have a dictator there, Nicolas Maduro, that is basically decimated all democratic institutions and left no chance of a democratic election. Now, the U.S. government and the international community do not recognize Maduro's dictator regime as the sovereign government of Venezuela. They recognize the last democratically elected body in the country, which is the National Assembly, which is presided by this gentleman, Juan Guaido, who has assumed the role of interim president of Venezuela to the international democratic community. So currently, there are two presidents of Venezuela. One that the worldwide democracy accepts, and a dictator that has the guns internally and that basically is able to block the bridges and basically runs the show internally. And he's a thug. So in essence, the United States government has seized funds from this thug, right? And unlike the Chinese authorities, they are actually looking to give the money back to Venezuela. But obviously, they don't want to give it back to the dictator. They want to give it back to the democratically elected president that they recognize. So there's a challenge for this. Why? Because the thug still runs the local banks, and the thug still controls all the guns and the bridges. So if you look at like foreign policy tools that governments have, the United States had put in sanctions, which essentially block the Venezuelan government from accessing financing and using the international financial system. Sanctions are defensive. They are meant to prevent the guys from stop growing. They are not meant for you to try to push your agenda on this other place, right? So up until now, all the things that the foreign policy or international community could do were defensive. We could not send money in because they would block the banking system. We could not send physical aid in because they literally blocked the bridges. So there was no way to send funds into the country until crypto P2P rails. So why is this a game changer? Because the Venezuelan dictator can prevent the United States government from sending dollars directly into the Venezuelan banking system. They have the means to do that. What they don't have the means to do is stop internal crypto transactions and P2P. Why is that? Because internally, when I use local Bitcoin and I sell some Bitcoin to another Venezuelan, that shows up in the internal financial system as a one-way bank transfer that somebody could send me to pay for rent, pay for food, pay for whatever. So what is the US government doing? It has basically enlisted AirTM, which is a company that has over 500,000 Venezuelans and a P2P exchange in the country that is working. And it has talked to USDC, the Circle's entity, to say, we will give you the $18 million that we have seized from Maduro. We will send it to your Circle account. You will use those dollars to mint USDC. And you now are able to send those USDC to pre-screen Venezuelans using AirTM's P2P rails. That is game-changing in many, many ways. One, it is the first time Venezuelans have actually been able to receive aid from a foreign country and actually make use of it. And secondly, it is the first time we've seen the United States government at least signal that they are okay with non-sanctioned Venezuelans properly screened, holding and transacting in USDC. So this opens the door to create a circular dollar economy within Venezuela that is outside the purview of the regime. I know I've talked for a bit, but I have to say what the regime is doing, basically, as a result of this move. What I'm most excited about is what they're actually having to do. Because in the past, they would announce these things, these efforts out of the United States, and the regime was just like, oh, whatever, it's not going to work. This time around, it's different. This time around, the week the announcement was made, the regime basically rolled out a policy to allow Venezuelans to bank in dollars locally. This is ludicrous. Nobody's going to do this, but they understand what's coming. And then a week after, basically after they said this, they've switched the narrative to when prior they had said that they were going to allow everyone to bank in dollars and transfer things in dollars internally. The new law says that they are going to tax all value transfers internally. And if value is transferred in a token or a currency not in the Bolivar, it will have to pay the highest tax rate in the country. So by switching the narrative from dollars to value, they have basically said it's not dollars, it can be any type of dollar form, or it can be even Bitcoin. It can be any form of value. So they're essentially, they're trying to put themselves in a position where they can always have purview on these transactions. But basically, if the United States and RTMs and all of our communities' efforts are successful, we will be boxing them out of their own economy and dollarizing Venezuela's economy outside of the government's purview, if that makes sense. So there's a bit of a fight. They want to dollarize it with their control. The world wants to dollarize it and box them out of any control.
This is a great use case for stablecoins now, isn't it? Very, very creative there, and I'm glad to see this real world experiment going on. And thank you for that very full explanation of the situation. Now, Daniel Prince, do you have any questions or anything to add to that?
Only that one, it's great to meet you, Maurizio, and I think I'd probably speak on behalf of the community that we're watching what's going on there, and we wish you guys all the best. So, any news that comes out of Venezuela of this kind is interesting to watch and to follow, and we're all rooting for you guys, and big love, man.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it. It's a real pleasure to meet you as well.
I got to say, I love when I have you on the show. You can tell us good news like this, because you say we're all rooting for you guys. There are maniacs out there that believe this is some huge, big United States conspiracy to get in Guaido, and it's to take oil, and just all of this. You're just forgetting the suffering of pretending like the suffering on the streets isn't really going on, that the guy really isn't a thug. So I loved the words that you used to describe Maduro and the situation there. So
they're an absolute ruthless thug. Did you see the news that they basically closed a food bank because they were taking dollars from an international group, and they were essentially feeding kids, but the food wasn't coming from the regime, and they shut it down. They took one meal a day from 25,000 kids.
It's very interesting what they do down there. Now, I want to say, do you have anything else to add to this story? How do you see it progressing? Could this help take down the government? Could crypto take down a government?
I've been there, and everything goes well until they pull out the guns, right? Eventually, when things get big enough, guns come out, and your options get reduced to nothing. So I think, as much as I love everything that's happening, it's important to understand, to Daniel's point, when somebody said, can the government do this? Can the government do X? Can the government do Y? The answer is always yes. They have unlimited resources, unlimited guns, and they will get their say because the majority of the country pick them. And so, I get excited. Of course I get excited. But I don't think for a second that the government is going to sit there and we're going to dollarize the economy outside their purview and they're just going to walk away. These guys have to get, and I'm sorry to say this might come harsh, but these guys aren't going to go out of there with an election. They're not going to go out of there the nice way. They will kill whoever they have to kill. They will bring the guns out, however many guns they have to bring. They have done it. They will do it again. So I get excited, but I'm still trying to pull my family out 24/7. So, unfortunately, that's kind of how I see it. And I know it's not the most positive, upbeat thing to say, But I think it's how I see it.
Well, this United States administration, the outgoing one, didn't send any American presence down there, should we say? Perhaps the next one will do so. You never know. I do want one final question. Do you see this USD crypto stablecoin battle being implemented in other countries? Maybe the United States will try this in Iran or something like that.
I think it's a model that's being tested. And I think if it works, it opens a can of worms for offensive foreign policy, with the dollar being the weapon. so oh boy, they will definitely love if they can use this.
What a world we're living in here. All right, pound that like button. We will move on to the big gossip story here, and that is the New York Times article is actually online right now about Coinbase. It is called "Tokenized: Inside Black Workers Struggle at the King of Crypto Startups." Oh my. And here's it under Brian Armstrong's picture. It says, Brian Armstrong, Coinbase's chief executive. In September, he published a public blog post telling employees to leave concerns for issues like racial justice at the door. That little caption, I think, explains why the New York Times is even writing this article and doing this hit piece. Now, it's linked to below. If you've read a certain amount of New York Times articles already, you can't see it. It's kind of behind the paywall. So I don't know if the guests have read it yet or not. But we'll start with Daniel Prince. Because you brought it up beforehand that he might have brought up one subject to deflect from this. What do you think about this hit piece? What's it going to do for Bitcoin? It's going to come out in print on Sunday, so that'll be the big day that people are talking about it, I assume.
Right. Yeah, I did read it. Thanks for sending the link. I don't know. Like, of course, it's a very negative view on somebody within the space that is always, well, certainly recently been viewed quite negatively amongst the Bitcoin hodlers and maxis, who runs a company that seems to go down every time the price is moving quickly in one direction or another. It's just more fuel on the fire for the people that don't like him or his company. I can't speak to the truth of it. Who knows? Like, who knows unless you are those people inside and have been experiencing those exact situations. So yeah, I don't think I could really say too much more on that.
What do you think about his attempt to warn everybody about it before it came out? Because on Thursday, again, there was a blog post saying that the New York Times is about to do a hit piece. It isn't true. Do you think that was a good move there to preempt it?
And I suppose so. You know, as a CEO of a company, you've got to, if you have the information that something like this is coming out, then you've got to prep your employees for it. I guess that would be expected of any CEO as a professional courtesy thing to do. But again, you know, unless you are in those four walls and have seen what's going on and can attest to some of the stories in that article, then it's down to the people of Coinbase to vote with their feet if this is true and this is against all of their beliefs, or they see it as a hit piece. I mean,
you summarized it as negative. I have not read the whole thing yet. I read parts of it. Could you give like any highlights you wanted? Anything that was like really stuck out in your mind or anything?
It's just about the company is, you know, it's a racial company. People there have been felt very victimized, and they have 3 or 4 accounts from people that have left the company and the reasons why they left the company. So like all these things, there's no smoke without fire, but unless you're actually within the confines of that company and see with your own eyes and hear with your own ears, it's going to make the rounds on Twitter. People are going to comment on it, obviously. It's going to be bad publicity for Coinbase. Then a few days after, it will probably be forgotten about, unless everybody gets up and leaves the company, right? It's I don't know. And it comes back like, did he do that tweet thread as well? Was that part of getting ahead of it? And I know you brought you put your thoughts on that earlier, and last night you were talking about it in the show. Again, that could be another reason he did that tweet thread.
Yes. All right, let's Mauricio, your thoughts on this woke article from the New York Times.
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Daniel said, the relationship or the exchanges that I've had with anyone at Coinbase have been great. I think they are a company that has done a tremendous amount of they've done a lot of good for the space, particularly in adoption. I don't know, it's very hard for any one of us to say what's going on in those four walls. So it would be very difficult to say, hey, how valid it's the content of the article versus how may not. What I can say is, having read some of the previous pieces about particularly Venezuela from this author, his piece, The Coder and the Dictator, which he put out, I believe a year ago now, was if you ask anybody in the Venezuelan community, it was not at all how it actually happened. This seemed more like a PR move from the coder himself, and it was very, to me at the time when I read it, the fact that you could have so much misinformation published by the New York Times blew me away. And despite comments from the community directly to the author, there was no responses. No sort of attempt to correct or even address the community that was challenging all the stuff that was cited in the article. So I don't want to say here that some of the stuff that's in the article may not be true. Like, again, I don't know. What I do know is that I have questioned in the past this reporter's research. So
yeah, there are a few people who are not big fans of this reporter when it comes to cryptocurrency. So very, very good point you make there. Okay, let's get away from that crypto noise and move to something that was noisy last summer, but it's coming back again. Libra. Apparently, Libra is going to launch in January 2021 as a U.S. dollar stablecoin. I'm excited about it. I think compete, don't complain. Let them print their own money. I have no problem. The last time when they made their initial announcement, everybody thought it was great for Bitcoin. So Daniel Prince, what's your take on is Libra going to finally do it in the beginning of 2021? Is it gonna rock the world, or is it just going to go in with a whimper there?
I really don't know, and I hope it's just like they've got what, 1 billion people on Facebook. Does this legitimize Bitcoin even further? That companies like this are trying to come up with their own digital token, and hopefully, if we do our jobs correctly in the Bitcoin space, and more people start looking at crypto assets and start looking online and start looking around for podcasts and start looking for articles and books, hopefully we're doing enough with shows like this and with positive articles and positive books and things like that, that when people are touched by this, should I start learning about crypto assets and digital currencies and things like that, that they will look at Bitcoin and stick to Bitcoin. But that said, we've seen what happens in the past when these things come out and people get a little bit wowed by it and go crazy for it. But and again, like the Libra project, what is the ultimate goal of it? Are they trying to make their own money within Facebook? I really haven't looked into the project that deeply, and I don't. Is it just another altcoin?
I think they would like it to be that way, but so far the government's given them a pretty hard time, and just they made it a pretty boring stable coin that will just live within Facebook, and we'll see how it develops over time. I'm of the mind that if a country can create its own Fed coin, so should Facebook should be able to do something just like a what the United States will eventually do, or what China is doing over there. Mauricio, do you have an opinion on Facebook finally getting their act together and perhaps coming out with the product in 2021?
Yeah, like first off, I want to say I'm a big fan of the Libra project. I think it can do a lot of good to the world if you understand the impact that it can have, and I'll explain why I feel that way. When you are in an environment like Venezuela and you have a populist regime that is doing crazy things with the currency and deliberately pushing you down a cliff, in the meantime, they're telling you that it's the evil empires that are just playing with your currency and the bad corporate speculators internally that are doing these bad things to you, but to listen to Papa government because we got your back, and come collect your food box. And so that is very powerful when you have very little education. And what they are very successful at doing is saying, the dollar is rising, inflation, right? Which is the barometer for your screwing up as a government. And they say, oh, the dollar's not going up because of nothing we're doing. It's the evil speculators that just want all of your dollars and they just want to price it higher. They want to make your goods more expensive. Okay. So they have because they control the media, because they control social media, because they control everything, they have a way of controlling that narrative, right? What I see in Libra is a bit of a Trojan horse, right? Because governments already accepted Facebook. Facebook is already a part of people's day-to-day lives, right? When Facebook tells people, hey, do you know you can start getting paid for your posts in dollars using this Libra thing? And hey, do you know you can pay your neighbor if you want for that tomato that you're going to get from her instead of actually going to the store? Wouldn't that be just much easier? And people are going to say, oh, this is awesome. Like, I can be a paid content maker and I no longer have to have a dollar account in Wells Fargo. I can actually get $1 from Billy in Thailand that liked my video and pay it to Maria to get my tomato. This is phenomenal, right? How is the government going to turn around and say, Maria is a criminal because she just won your dollar? Or Billy in Thailand is a criminal because he wants to tip you in dollars? They immediately lose the dollar is for bad guys narrative. Like, all of a sudden, when dollars are on Facebook, dollars are for everybody. And once a person receives $1 in Venezuela, is able to hold it and spend it, that's the end of that person's Bolivar life.
I mean, that is a great, I like that take a lot. I haven't heard that such a positive take on Facebook Libra yet. And we've got a question for you from the audience. Do you think if Libra launches, is it a tether killer?
I think there's going to be a bit of a face-off between KYC and no KYC everything in crypto. So I think Tether might be too big already to not ever be regulated. I think eventually they will come to the light that they have to kind of come to talk to regulators. But I do think that there's going to be an interesting, there will always be demand for non-KYC things. There will forever be. That's a demand in the market that will be very hard to satisfy. And there will always be huge opportunity in following regulation and doing things through the right path. So I don't think it's a tether killer. I do think that there will be, some stable coins will get to scale and it'll be very hard for others to compete. But I do see a world where there is like somewhat of a plurality of stable coins.
All right. You got to get out of here in 4 minutes, Mauricio, and we're going to end the show pretty soon, but I might go over a little bit than 4 minutes. So I'll let you do your conclusionary remarks here. Anything you have to add? I didn't get to ask anyone about the $3,000 drop, because to me, it's just like, it's so common in Bitcoin. It's nothing to me, but maybe you had something to say about that too before you go. So the floor is yours.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. Nothing. I guess, for those who don't know our company, check out Ledin.io. We have savings accounts for USDC and Bitcoin. We have loans for people that don't want to sell their Bitcoin, or loans for people that want to buy more Bitcoin. As far as the price action example, I mean, I see it's a sort of it's a combination of a few things. One, we've been quite overstretched. We're up 73% in 49 days. So I think it's just a natural breather. I think the outage for AWS that took down half the internet impacted how people felt about, their ability to access the internet or etc. So that might have made people feel a little bit nervous. And then on top of that, you had the news out of the news out of Coinbase, that tweet, and the potential FAFT roof. So I think it's a bit of a knee jerk. And frankly, I think this is very healthy going into Thanksgiving, because the other option was blow off top, and it would have been probably a worse correction, at least in my view.
All righty. You are linked to below. Check out Ledin. Thank you much for being on. You can stick around until the end if you can, but I bet you got to go because you got that restriction now. Daniel Prince, how about you in terms of the price today, or if you had any more comments on anything that we've said since the last time you spoke?
Yeah, price wise, there's some nice, cheap, tasty sats on sale. Let's go. Make sure everybody is fiat cost averaging rather than FOMOing in and just try and set it and forget it. Find your local dispensary, whatever country you're in, wherever you can find a Bitcoin only auto buy or DCA service. FCA, excuse me, fiat average. And Honey Badger doesn't care. Price goes up, price goes down. Let's go. It's there are so many theories. None of them are ever going to be correct. It's I think we're probably all a little bit immune to these $3,000 swings anyway, aren't we, by this stage?
Yes, I am. Everyone
Volatility is your friend at the end of the day. Number go down very quickly, get some stats, and you'll pick them up nice and cheap. Number go up very quickly, everybody's happy and making great memes on Twitter.
All right. Any news about the podcast, upcoming guest, anything you want to promote?
So Once Bitten is the name of the podcast. Thank you everybody for listening. Got some interesting. I think my next episode is a little different. I speak with a lady called Angela out of the UK. She's not on Twitter. She's not on any social media. She's a boomer and she's stacking sats. And I just wanted to, get her story in what brought her into Bitcoin and the rabbit hole story, and how, as a boomer, what were her barriers to entry, and it's an interesting one. I'll have Preston Pish back in middle of December as well. So looking forward to having him on.
Dude, you're a unique beast bringing on a boomer like that. I think that's an excellent topic because I have boomers that come to me that are kind of quiet. They're like, why does everybody hate us in the space? We're just trying to do our thing. They got a great perspective. They are welcome here to everyone. You can't stop boomers from being here. There's memes on Twitter, okay boomer or whatever it is. They're welcome here. Well, come on, man. They got their say. They can buy it too. It helps us all. So great stuff on your part. Thank you, panel, for being on. I know it's half the panel, most of the panel's gone now. You stuck to the end, so that's awesome. Thank you very much. They're all linked to below. Okay, everybody. So yes, $3,000 drops in less than 24 hours. Get used to it, people. Long for the days in the future when we have those $10,000 drops, baby. It's going to be fun. The roller coaster. This is only the beginning, as I say, only the beginning. So thank you, guest. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I'm Adam Meister, the BitcoinMeister, Disrupt Meister. We do this show every freaking Friday. So pound that like button, people. Retweet it on Twitter. Follow me there at TECHBALT. Thank you, people who are watching live. See you guys tomorrow. And then see some of you next Friday. We do a new show here every day. But again, This Week in Bitcoin every Friday. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you. See ya.